Okay, let's talk a little 2000 Mules here, and I will remind our audience and ourselves, frankly, that we have to be very careful on Susan's platform about what we can and can't say. But I just want to give an overview for people who maybe haven't seen it yet, and sort of some of our thoughts about it. But the idea of the movie, this is Dinesh D'Souza's movie about irregularities in an unspecified recent election. The idea is this, that research and voter advocacy group True the Vote bought a huge amount of cell phone geolocation data. And they looked at the geolocation data in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, all very close swing states, of course, that together in a theoretical world in which some shenanigans happened, could swing the election result. And the researchers identified individuals moving between unnamed political nonprofits and ballot drop boxes. Those are the mules that they're talking about. The team also looked at available surveillance footage of drop boxes they obtained through public records requests. So through this methodology, the team says they identified 2,000 mules, as the title suggests, or people they allege were paid, they say, to bundle and drop ballots potentially illegally across various ballot drop sites. And the team concludes that the ballots dropped by these mules were in an amount sufficient to change the outcome of a hypothetical election of no real occurrence, Susan. Certainly not the most recent one that everybody knows was the freest, fairest, and most secure of all time. Now, as far as my thoughts on this movie, because the praise I have for it would come dangerously close to earning Queen Susan's axe, the praise I'm going to say is just watch it. Yes, it is expensive, a little bit expensive to get it online. But it's also pretty thorough work that I think is worth supporting, and it absolutely contains video footage that is worth your time and money to see. So definitely watch it if you're at all interested. As far as some criticisms, or maybe criticisms is the wrong word, but just unresolved questions. Who or what are these nonprofits? I'm guessing that Dinesh D'Souza, the producers of the movie, opted not to name them for fear of, my speculation, accusations that could be defamatory. They probably don't want to open themselves up to lawsuits. But if you're alleging with confidence that these nonprofits worked in a way that changed election outcomes, as the movie does, there shouldn't be a real defamation fear, because the truth is a rock solid defamation defense. So I would like to know who these nonprofits they're talking about are. We don't know yet. Where did the ballots come from? The movie implies that they got them from nursing homes or college campuses or other places where there might be a lot of them vulnerable to theft or otherwise illegitimate, obtaining them illegitimately. The movie's theory is that these ballots were in fact legitimate, but they were improperly filled out or improperly delivered. So how were they obtained? There's not a lot of conclusive evidence on how they were obtained, though we do know, everybody has a story about, I got like 5 ballots in my mailbox from people who lived here.
Everyone's got a story like that, yeah.
So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'd just like to see a little more evidence on that front. The movie provides no hard evidence, and I'll be careful there. It's not no evidence, but it's no hard evidence that the ballots were filled out or delivered fraudulently. It does look extremely sketchy, and I personally have no doubt that it is. However, you have to note that in all of these states, delivery of a ballot by a person other than the voter is permitted. Mm-hmm. In many of these states, it's family of the voter only. I don't think it's what happened, but it does leave the excuse open. Unless we know who that is and what names are on that ballot, we don't. It might be a guy with 6 brothers and sisters. It's possible. Again, not likely. Not that I'm saying that's for sure what happened. Just there are alternative explanations that the movie leaves open. And a lot of people have commented on this. No video demonstration of a mule doing what they allege that mules do. They have the geolocation data to show people traveling between drop boxes, and it looks very sketchy, considering they don't just happen to drive by drop boxes. In many of these examples, they're going to a drop box, turning around, and then going back to one of these nonprofits or to another drop box.
Oh, it's so obvious what's happening here. Come on.
I'm not saying I disagree or I'm not saying I think that that's an unreasonable conclusion. I guess all I'm saying is that they have video footage, they have geolocation data. They weren't able to produce an example on video of a person going from one drop box to another. And Dinesh D'Souza's excuse for that is, the footage was limited because of broken cameras and because of records requests that were denied or unfulfilled and all sorts of things. I have no doubt that there were all kinds of obstacles placed in front of the producers of this movie.
Yeah.
But if it's on the scale that they're talking about, 2,000 in these 5 markets, you couldn't find one. I'm not saying that it means the rest is crap, but I guess I'm just surprised they weren't able to produce one example. Bottom line, though, it is completely sketchy behavior that they have captured. Even if I want to entertain the idea that these people on video were behaving totally legally and dropping off a dozen ballots of all their brothers and sisters, there are still sketchy factors on top of that. Why are they wearing gloves and then disposing of the gloves?
Yes.
In the garbage can right next to the drop box. It's Corona.
It's incredibly obvious what's going on here. This is so frustrating.
Why are they showing up at 3 a.m?
Yeah.
To make sure, and then looking to make sure the coast is clear. Why are they taking photos of the drop box after putting the ballots in the drop box? Is it really just an Instagram thing? Bro just voted, flex emoji or something like that. Who knows? It's weird to take the photos that they're taking. So, the fact checks, they note that there's a lack of absolute, concrete, undeniable proof, but they also fail to explain why what we're seeing is supposedly normal. I guess the best analogy I can think of is, let's say you have a murder and it's not on video. You don't have DNA evidence or anything like that. But there's a guy on video walking around outside the apartment where the murder took place with a knife at 3 a.m. Do we have some questions about that guy? Or are we just going to say, no, it's the butcher was going to work early that day.
Yeah.
That's all. There's nothing to see here.
This is how cases are solved. You never have all of the evidence.
Yeah.
You just have to look at the evidence that you have and make a decision about what probably most likely happened beyond a reasonable doubt. It's very obvious what happened here. This was so tedious to watch.
Just a couple thoughts, and then I'll get to your remaining rage. And I think whether we want to accept the proposition in this movie that it was enough to swing the results of a hypothetical unspecified election that is not at all recent, it's enough demonstration to show that there are gaping holes in the system that we ran. For anybody to look at what is on video there and say, not a big problem. Those are big security gaps that need to be fixed in your state's voting system. If you live in one of these states, and that's why we've seen a lot of state legislatures respond. So even if you don't want to buy into the quote unquote stolen election message, you can watch a lot of really sketchy behavior on video, and we should think about what our election laws and policies are. And I also don't want to be too critical of True the Vote here and what they have or don't have, because it's possible that True the Vote has more to show. True the Vote says they're going to release all 4 million minutes of Dropbox surveillance footage that they have. And I sort of have trouble believing that there's something far beyond what they've already shown, because I'm betting they've kind of combed through this. But that said, 4 million minutes is a hell of a lot. That's 8 years of continuous footage. So it's totally possible that they missed something and there's additional information that might be uncovered. Anyway, I've droned on, and I can tell you you have some additional thoughts about it.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I was watching this and I was like, this is just it's just too late. It's just too late for all of this. And it's frustrating to have what you've speculated confirmed, knowing that no additional action is going to be taken. Like I found that so exhausting while watching this. And then I have to be told the likelihood of voter fraud by like fucking Charlie Kirk and then watch him, lick Dennis Prager's butthole. The whole thing was just like a neocon jerk off. I could barely stand it. I wanted to kill myself while I was watching this. I was like, oh my God. And yes, I understand that there was obviously voter fraud, but is it going to overturn the election? Is it going to overturn the vote? No. Is it going to fortify future elections? No. Look at what happened with January 6th. It's like 10 people get led into the Capitol and do nothing, and it's an insurrection. All people wanted to do was have our concerns validated in a meaningful way by the federal government, and instead they like threw people in jail and charged a bunch of grandmas and stuff, and some people got killed. So nothing's going to happen. Obviously, there was voter fraud
on a very small, insignificant scale.
Yeah. So what is Dinesh D'Souza doing? This was just so masturbatory.
Well, I can agree that if you really wanted to tighten up the presentation, it's probably a really tight 30-minute YouTube video.
I know.
And it's stretched into 90 minutes of
this,
like speculation.
Round table where
yeah,
I have to look at Charlie Kirk's face. Ew.
It's still worth the watch though.
Yeah, whatever. Watch it. I mean, you're not going to find out anything that everybody hasn't already speculated about.
And I guess to the difference making, I mean, the only pushback I could offer is there's been a lot of legislation passed in a lot of states about election systems and security. However, to the point that this movie makes, if you don't have those mechanisms and security in the right places, it might not matter. I mean, again, I think there are some holes here that a few holes that need some plugging to make this a little bit more of a conclusively convincing case. But that's sort of the theme of the movie, that if there was somebody hypothetically out there, Susan, who wanted to target specific markets in order to sway an election, it's a small number of very specific places that you would have to do it. It's not, it's nice if Montana cleans up our election laws, but it also has no practical effect on elections in the future, other than it's great to have secure elections here in Montana, but does it change results?
But don't you find that maddening that we were right and it doesn't matter?
Well, it definitely won't matter retroactively. Like the investigations to go find who these people are, I wouldn't count on that. Optimistically, though, I do think that it will change some attitudes about how election law is handled in a lot of states, and that's the best I can say for it. I don't think it's a total.
They need to overturn the election results.
Well, that's definitely not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, but
0%.
what is justice outside of that?
Well, there are light shades of lessons to be learned for the future. Full justice, I grant, that's not going to happen.
The lesson to be learned is to not underestimate the malice of the left.
I suppose.
Or to confuse
I can't disagree
with
that.
incompetence. We grossly underestimated them.
All right, let me try this point of optimism for you. Great opportunity for alt tech.
Yes,
Rumble crushed it on this. Rumble, so it's been hosted through Rumble and
locals.
They made $1 million in the first 12 hours. That number at the box office would put the movie in the top 10 for last weekend, though it should be noted the $30 price tag is a little bit bigger than most theater tickets. But still,
how much money did Charlie Kirk make?
I don't know. I have no idea. The only other thing I'll say is, again, I've been talking about this a little bit lately. Beware cell phone geolocation data. The government is using this too. Just understand that. A story of similar theme came out right before this movie was released. Just like Dinesh and True the Vote bought cell phone geolocation data to do this analysis, the CDC and other government alphabet agencies have been buying it in recent years to track people. Now, supposedly, the data are anonymized. They can't figure out who you are, what dot you are. But the New York Times and others have demonstrated if you just connect a few dots, if you know literally anything about a person, you can make that person personally identifiable and trackable using the geolocation data. Now, obviously, this is not a call of me saying everybody throw your phone in the lake or something. The realities of modern tech are what they are. Some of us submit to that. Some of us don't. I like internet tech. I like that you tune into this show, obviously. I'm not saying get rid of all of that. A lot of this, people aren't necessarily fully aware of. And I'm including myself in that. All these apps that have location features, when you consent to them, you are almost guaranteed to become one of these databases. And a lot of times it's not even super clear. It says we might sell the data to advertisers, give the data to advertisers. Okay, I don't think of the CDC as an advertiser, though. It's just understand that it's licensed for a lot of people. You may not like to snoop when you consent to these things. So just be fully aware.